How's it going, gents? Stand in the door 1944. Today we're going to be going over the two most common helmet nets used by the 82nd Airborne in World War II. Let's get into it. So before we jump into the details on these two helmet nets, I do want to give a solid shout out to the World War II Airborne Demonstration Team. I've been a member of that organization since 2008. I jumped with them back in 2019 for the 75th anniversary of D-Day, and I really cannot have better things to say about the organization. If you're interested in experiencing what our World War II veterans actually went through during their training jumps in World War II, I highly suggest going onto their Facebook page as well as their website to check out when the next jump school would be available for you. If jumping is not quite your thing, you can still donate to the team, and your donations are going to go directly towards us continuing our mission to remember, honor, and serve our World War II veterans. We really appreciate your support, and we're going to look forward to seeing you on those pages. Without further ado though, let's jump into the detail on these two different helmet nets. So the 82nd Airborne was wearing both of these different styles, but it is important to know for your impression at what stage in the war these different helmet nets were being used. As always, with any information that I present to you, I highly suggest backing it up with your own research. I've studied 101st and 82nd Airborne for 20 years, but my information is not flawless or infallible. Go ahead and do your own research. Look at original photographs of the unit that you're looking to represent and base your impression and base your unit's impression off of those photographs. Use the information that I present you as a baseline to go and check and confirm that it's right for your unit before you actually implement it as a unit SOP. So first off, let's go over the early war campaign. So let's go over Africa, Sicily, and Italy. So for those three campaigns, the 82nd Airborne, we're going to be using what I call the early war style helmet net. And that's this one right here. The most identifiable features of this particular net is the spacing between the actual knots on the net. They range from 1/2 to 3/4 inch. I say they range because depending on how tightly you suspend this around your helmet, it is going to alter those spacings just a little bit. But for early war, this is what the 82nd Airborne is going to be using. After Italy, whenever the 82nd Airborne was shipped to England to start to prepare for D-Day, that's when you start to see them transition into the ladder war style helmet net that you see here. The most identifiable feature of this particular net is that it is much smaller spaces between the knots. So we were going from 1/2 to 3/4 inch all the way down to 1/4 inch for these helmet nets. The reason that they were transitioning from these helmet nets over to these is because after Italy, the helmet nets that they were using for that campaign were no longer serviceable. After prolonged field use, those helmet nets start to decay, deteriorate, they tear, they're cut, whatever. They're no longer serviceable and they no longer serve as good camouflage for the actual helmets. So they remove those old helmet nets. They actually go and would do a repaint on all their helmets after each campaign, and then they would go and they would be issued new helmet nets. But by the time of Normandy, the production of these earlier war helmet nets have slowed down greatly, and I think that they had transitioned into the smaller mesh helmet nets. So that's why the 82nd Airborne was being issued these helmet nets. So the 82nd Airborne would have been wearing these all the way from Normandy through Market Garden, and can even be seen into the Battle of the Bulge and into the early stages of the latter part of the war. They are a bit rare once you start getting into the Battle of the Bulge and starting getting into the latter part of the war, because again, these helmet nets, after prolonged field use, they'd start to rip and decay and so forth, and eventually they would just end up pulling these helmet nets off. So by the last stages of the war, you're going to see most paratroopers actually not using any helmet nets at all, at least in the 82nd and 101st Airborne. Another interesting fact to point out regarding the helmet nets for the 82nd Airborne is the lack of scrim camouflage being used. So many people are going to think that paratroopers always wore scrim or camouflage burlap inside their helmet nets during World War II. This is actually not true. Again, base this information off of original photographs of the unit that you're trying to represent, but scrim and helmet nets was uncommonly rare in the 82nd Airborne throughout any of their operations. So rule of thumb, if you're representing the 82nd Airborne, scrim is going to be something that you're going to want to leave off that helmet net. So to recap for the 82nd Airborne in World War II, if you're going to be portraying an early war event such as Africa, Sicily, or Italy, you're going to be wanting to use the early war style of helmet net, 1/2 to 3/4 inch. If you're going to be doing Normandy, Market Garden, or potentially even a bulge event, you're going to want to transition that helmet net over to the 1/4 inch size. Both these helmet nets can be found on our website at standinthedoor1944.com. Thanks a lot, go ahead and like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.